Hello everyone and welcome back to PEX Network's RPA and IA Live 2020. I'm your host Jennifer Pham and I'll be guiding you through all of the webcasts this week. Our next session is a great analogy for RPA. Imagine it drowning and screaming for a lifeguard. Michael Rosick, the Chief Product Officer at Minit, will explain the rest. So over to you, Mikhail.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for those of you who are in different time zones. Thank you very much for joining. This session is really trying to be an analogy. I know that we are on an RPA event and we should be very positive. And I will try to be positive in a sense that we at Minit have been, evangelizing market for many years on a synergy between two very hype and modern topics, and that's basically RPA and process mining, or how is it now called, task mining and process mining. And we believe that the synergy between those two, not just those technologies separately, makes sense in that market. So when we look at the RPA world now, what we see is what I like to call an RPA paradox. We see the booming of that industry, and according to the Fortune Business Insights, it's going to boom even more. We see big valuations of the companies that are on the market, the top players. The market size is estimated for 6 billion. In 2026, I've seen even numbers like 10 billion in 2029. So we are seeing a growth rate of more than 20% over the years 2019 to 2026. On the other hand, as the studies, for example, like the EY study on RPA, which was done from their own projects that they made, shows that nearly 40% of those RPA projects are failing, and those initiatives are being stopped because they are not delivering the expected results. And we know that RPA, many of the RPA players came from, test automation industry or industries that are established. The technology is great. It's really working. And also the EY study says that the technology is not considered to be the primary reason of the failure. So what actually is causing the RPA projects fail? And there are many reasons that have been studied and weighted and put in a chart. So I picked just four, which I consider very important in this context. And the first one being the POCs. It is now very popular with enterprises and companies to go with a small POC or POV, proof of concept, to see the value of the technology in their environment. And the problem is that many times for the POC, it's the choice for the POC, or the choice of the problem for the POC, is that it delivers quick results, it delivers value very quickly, but then there is a very embarrassing gap between the results of the POC and the results that you receive from the production. Then looking at the task versus process. So many times bots are treated as series of automations instead of looking at the end-to-end change. When we are talking about optimization of processes with RPA, we should be looking at the end-to-end process. This is what we are talking really from the beginning, that even though RPA, the P in RPA stands for a process, many times it is considered really to be a set of task automations instead of looking at the end-to-end process. And many times we are optimizing processes that are hybrid, where bots are cooperating with people. And we have done also several webinars on that topic. And we need to look at the things like bottleneck shifts in those processes, or how those two task or workforces cooperate. Third is optimize for the RPA. Many companies and enterprises choose the automation first strategy. So they take a POC, they see that the automation works, that it's pretty seamless. It's very easy, no integration needed. So they go automation first. Even for processes or tasks in processes where, the transparency over the process, how the process works is unknown in the enterprise. So really like looking at the process before even starting the RPA initiative makes total sense. And then, of course, the fourth point, targeting. Many times, the process that has been chosen is either the most complex process, or is the process that someone thinks without any data that this is the right process to be automated. This is the right process where RPA should be implemented. The problem is that there is no reasoning for that, and we are trying to say use the data that you have. Use the data to really come with the synergy. So when we are looking at the synergy and the two, let's say, hypes, I call it the marriage of the hypes, is the task mining that we are seeing right now to be a very modern word and really being used by enterprises to go for when talking about RPA initiatives, and the process mining. And the difference between those two has been nicely defined by Gartner in a document where they compare and talk about the synergy between process mining and task mining. Process mining is really designed to discover, monitor, improve actual processes. So we are extracting the knowledge from event logs from different information systems that are being used. And task mining is looking at really low level of those individual activities that are being performed in the systems, because task mining really records what the people are doing on the level of clicking, typing, using shortcuts on the keyboards. So really like individual actions that the people are doing to perform those high-level tasks that the process mining can uncover. And sometimes it is, as you will see also in the demonstration and in the next few slides, it is sometimes very important to look at the process from the low level, really look at what the people are doing to be able to optimize and automate those particular activities in those systems. But on the other hand, sometimes it is necessary to go to the helicopter view and look at the process from the process mining perspective, because that makes sense to really focus and target the right RPA candidates. So here is a comparison of process mining and task mining, and we really can see that the process mining looks at the end-to-end process. That's the benefit of process mining. Task mining, even though you can record everything that the people are doing 24/7 for 1 year, the tasks that they are performing are sometimes work-related, sometimes not. They do not have the identification of the case, the correlation between those tasks. They are looking at a different level of complexity and the flow. With task mining, we are looking at steps in a particular task. With process mining, we are looking at the tasks and how they correlate together. What is the sequence? What are the different variations of that? So also different technologies are used in those two areas. And more importantly, it's the level of data that you have. On the task level, on the task mining level, you do not have attributes that can relate to let's say what we call a BI world, so the environment sometimes in the enterprise. On the process mining level from the information systems, you can extract the data like vendors, like what is the different activity connected with, and do analysis on top of that. Now, how does it relate to a job of a lifeguard? And I don't know if in your country, but in Slovakia, lifeguards are sometimes considered to be people just sitting next to the pool and reading a book and waiting for something to happen. But in reality, I think that lifeguards on beaches, on really in environment where it is important to observe, to really control the environment of surfers and swimmers, are a very important part of the safety. And we will look at the job description of a lifeguard the individual duties, and I see a big parallel between that and the processes, and then the synergy between process mining and task mining. And we will look at it from the PR to PO perspective. We've done a small project for a large enterprise recently, where we had the synergy in place. So we extracted the event logs from SAP system for a PR to PO case or use case. We had around 12 months of data with around more than 350 resources involved in more than 12,000 cases. And we decided to do analysis on that data, and then based on that analysis, decide what should be recorded using a task mining perspective. And there we captured, individual actions of 3 resources, 3 people doing a certain task, and using several applications, including SAP, but also including Outlook, Excel, PDFs, and so on. And there was a certain number of activities and variations, and you will see that also in the demonstration. So let's have a look at the first duty. So what the Lifeguard does. It opens and closes the beach. So the Lifeguard actually is responsible for removing barriers at the beginning of the day, and then maybe putting them back in case of emergency, danger, or at the end of the day. So basically, the Lifeguard guards the beach, guards the surfers, and gives them the space, the limits where they can move. And it is very similar with process mining and task mining. If you look at the process from different perspectives, this is a schema that shows the different levels or granularities, being the P0, the highest level, basically the financial supply chain, the level 0, which is giving the overall frame of the process. Then it goes into different procure to pay processes on level 1. So we are getting more and more variations. We are moving to level 2 and 3. And actually, there are 4 levels where it takes the process mining to be, where the process mining can cover it from the logs taken from the information systems like SAP. But then the process mining ends because mostly the systems like SAP do not deliver more data, do not deliver more granularity. And this is where task mining takes place, because task mining goes from the opposite direction. It really records the individual activities or in the individual user interactions with the computer, the applications, on the level 5, and then is able to really aggregate that data into different variations of that particular activity. And now the synergy is in where the level 4 is put together from the process mining perspective as well as from the task mining perspective with correlations algorithms that I will talk about a bit later. So really process mining gives you the space, goes to the level where it can say, okay, this makes sense to be recorded. This is something where task mining is beneficial and where RPA would be a good candidate for automation. Now, the second duty is to monitor weather and conditions. So a Lifeguard is working on a beach and overlooks the weather forecast, overlooks the tidal activity, really for the surfers to be safe in the water. If the Lifeguard sees that there might be a potential danger, there might be a potential problem, it will keep the surfers on the beach. Otherwise, it will allow them to enter the water. So now when we look at the same schema again, we can see that really that monitoring takes place on the level 4. So process mining can look at the different statistics and metrics, can look at the different data aggregations, even using your custom calculations, and based on the data, give you the approval or allow you to use task mining on that particular activity. Maybe approval is not the right word, but it will focus your attention on that particular activity where it definitely makes sense. Many companies try to do a different approach, because the approach that I described is called a more supervised or semi-supervised UI recording. So task mining can record everything in an unsupervised way. Some companies even consider unsupervised UI recording a better approach and a kind of replacement for process mining, because they expect that they will discover the whole process. They will get the transparency of the whole process and immediately get also the data that is needed for RPA. The problem is that unsupervised UI recording really, even though it's a lower initial investment because you do not need to invest in process mining or in two technologies, the process discovery expectations are not met. Of course, it is less prone to user error because in supervised UI recording, you are mostly recording work-related activities. Sometimes even users are responsible for starting and stopping the recording itself. Sometimes you are blacklisting and whitelisting applications to get rid of the applications that are used for personal purposes. But on the other hand, you are more focused. You are not delivering too much data to the algorithms that are finding the patterns in the data. And you get a better understanding of the correlation of the individual tasks. From the privacy and security standpoint, with supervised UI recording, you also have less privacy and security issues. Of course, because you are informing the user that you are recording just a certain part of the process and not everything he or she does on the computer. Secondly, when we are connected with the monitoring and of the conditions, the task mining perspective and really getting ready for the RPA, for getting the skeletons of the bots, it's not only about recording those activities and looking at it from a perspective of a map. We get very raw data. We get a lot of different recordings, and the very important part is the algorithms that are able to extract different task variants out of that process. So the pattern recognition, mostly based on AI or machine learning algorithms, is a vital part of really that intelligence that is put in task mining to be able to be very easily and reasonably connected with process mining overview. Duty number 3, organize beach activities. So as I said, we are getting a lot of data. We are getting a lot of raw data. We even have the different task variations based on the machine learning algorithms. We can correlate it with process mining data, so we get an overall picture. The problem is that if we get the overall picture, we are looking at different granularities. So looking back at that schema, you can see that we have both the low granularity and the high granularity logs in the same picture, in the same process map. And sometimes, if the variations are very complex, you get a mess. You get a spaghetti process. Now, what you can do with that, and what mostly process mining algorithms and tools like Minit offer, is the organization of that. So, for example, Minit has a patent pending technology called hierarchical process mining, where the recordings and the variations of the pattern recognition algorithms are organized according to the systems, the applications, the individual windows, and the fields, or different levels of that hierarchy as you choose, as you want, and based on the process, of course. And this is organized into clusters that are expandable, collapsible. Most importantly, it is also calculating aggregated metrics and statistics on top of that. So if you collapse those clusters to get a simpler process, you can just use that metrics, even your custom metrics, to drill down into those parts which are really focusing your attention from the the bottleneck point of view or financial point of view or other points of view. Duty number 4, oversee surface safety. So it's about monitoring the conditions, monitoring the behavior. It's, of course, about monitoring what the people are doing there and enforcing safety rules. In the process mining and task mining world, what does that mean? Well, it basically means that you do not finish your work in that RPA initiative with finding the right variation, with finding something interesting in that process. It must continue. So basically, we are now looking at a horizontal part of the schema, and what we say is that most important is to have an end-to-end process monitoring. So establishing a data pipeline to really be able to get the actual data from the high-level system like SAP, but also to get the data from either task mining or from the bot monitoring, which is a part that is very often forgotten. That also the bots that are running inside of those processes, if they are already implemented, they are producing logs, or you can set what they are producing and combine that again with the process mining data to get the overall picture. And this is the way how you can find those bottleneck shifts where the bots are producing a lot of work for the human task force that is actually taking the work from the robots. And of course, the third part, interactive dashboards. Mostly what people are looking at, or which people are looking at those outputs are the process stakeholders. So with the management, business people, process owners, people who want to see the actual state of the process, whether it is already automated or before automation, they want to have the thumb on the pulse of the initiative. So one thing is the interactive dashboards. The second thing is being able to drill down into those dashboards to filter different parts of the dashboard to see the KPIs in colors, but also to look at business rules, because sometimes the output of those analysis is setting the business rules that are able to show you where the certain sequences of actions or certain behavior in the process is violated. Certain KPIs are not met. And business rules functionality in tools like Minit is available, and you can base your monitoring part on top of that. And finally, duty number 5, contribute to maintenance and upkeep. So even lifeguards are those who are really looking about the not only safety, but also cleanness of the beach, about everything that happens there, whether it is safe from the environment point of view. And here we are looking then at a particular process. And I was mentioning that bot monitoring. And bot monitoring might occur in different ways. Of course, the bots are producing some standard logs, but when we look at those logs, they are very low granularity. So there is a lot of activities. Every action that is performed by the bot can be logged. And this produces a lot of performance issues. So the approach that we chose, for example, in Minit, is to enable the developers in the RPA world to really say when something should be logged, what is of interest for the process stakeholders. And so, for example, we prepared packages with custom logging activities for the major players like UiPath, like Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and so on, Edgeworth. We have this prepared. You can use that in the RPA bots to log only on those particular places where it is of interest. And then, of course, there is a bot collection hub, which is collecting that information and transforming it into an event log, which can be then easily combined with the process mining log as well. So these are the duties. Now, I think it's the time to see a bit of a, one episode of Baywatch, or in other words, let's look at Minit from a demo perspective. So let me share my screen here. Okay, I think it's sharing. So here we are in the project hub of Minit, and we have imported the PR to PO process with the correlated task mining logs I mentioned earlier in that project that we did. And we start with a standard PR to PO analysis and just have a brief look at the process. So this is we simplify the process map using the standard sliders of the activities and paths. We are looking at all the data in the process. And as you can see, this is really a standard PR to PO process. So here we have the part that is taking care of the purchase requisitions. This part is taking then care of the purchase orders. We see the requisitions being approved, mostly going then to PO create, PO submit, and so on. And but what we see here is that there is a certain number of cases that goes directly to PO create. So the process is starting basically with PO create without the purchase requisitions. Actually, we found on some other filters around 56% in this particular company, about 56% starting with PO create without the purchase requisition. And this way you can analyze the process. You can look at different metrics. So we can look at it immediately from the performance standpoint. So look at the mean durations. To immediately focus our attention with the halo effect, with the thickness of the lines on the different potential. Create really is the activity, and the activities around PO create take a lot of time. Now we can look at the financial data. As we can see that a lot of those cases, a lot of those POs are flowing through PO create, which is logical, but also through the other activities. So we can see where the money flows in the process. What is kind of even more interesting is looking at the rework here. And we have a special set of metrics, like here we are looking at the so-called net loop gain. We are identifying the different types of loops, not only self loops where the activities repeat after each other, but also at the loops that are going through several hops. And you can then also tweak a little bit the visualization to really see like where the loops happen on the PO create. The red halo effect is identifying the activity that is causing the loops. And the blue ones are those which are consuming the loops. So you can immediately see what activity is causing a lot of rework in that process. And that means that your task mining activities and your potential RPA candidate might be in that activity. And this means that you can focus then your attention on that activity to look deeper on what the people are doing there. So basically, we choose this basic analysis, and I've just shown a bit of it to see that how we analyze the process, how we focus the attention on certain activities. We can then filter the activities from the viewpoint of purchase orders without the purchase requisition. So here what we see are only the cases that do not have the purchase requisition. And we can go then to statistics, for example, and look at, let's say, vendors, vendor IDs, and see that around 70% of the cases are caused by these three vendors. Or you can use a functionality called case duration influencer, which is finding the root cause of different, how the different attributes are just focusing on causing delays in that process. But more importantly, we already see we have two PO creates here. We have the standard PO create, but we also have the PO create recording. And that is something that we took from the task mining. This is the low granularity log encapsulated in the hierarchical process mining perspective. So what we can do here is basically drill down, and I will just, for the sake of time, expand it all, and just have a look at what is happening in that recording. So we see how people are working, where they are clicking, where they are typing text, using shortcuts, switching from application to application. We also can look, as Minit offers also the even level filtering, we can look just at the sub-process that is taking place, so only at that recording, and find the variants that are available in that recording. So when we look at the process map, we see that this is just the recording part. These are the individual activities that the people have been doing on the user interface. And when we look at the variant analysis here, we can easily identify the variants that are most frequent. We see that there are 3 variants in this PO without PR use case, we see which of these activities is taking long. So here we have the performance metrics. The mean duration of this is 1 minute. So this is more straightforward case. Now the specialist can have a look whether this is the right approach to the automation, and whether you can take even the variant sequence of the activities as a skeleton of the bot. And this is exportable and usable for the RPA developers as an underlying source of creating the bots. Of course, you can look at different other metrics in the process. So when the process is already automated a bit, you can even create your custom metrics to show, for example, the automation potential. So it will really immediately focus your attention on the activities that are, for example, partially automated or not automated at all. So you can monitor your automation level in that process. You can find that candidate as well using this process automation metrics. You can look at the process from the social chart perspective. We have used this also to really give because sometimes it's not only about automation and RPA. Sometimes RPA might not be the best candidate for a certain optimization. But for example, it might be a training for the users on a certain activity that is being performed in that process. And here, the hierarchical process mining is used to see the organizational structure. And again, using the aggregated metrics, you can drill down into that particular part of the process to see the bottlenecks from the organizational mining perspective. I was also talking about monitoring. And the monitoring, of course, when you have the views in Minit, you can use then the dashboards to log into the web interface and look at the overall dashboards for a particular case, for a particular filtered part of the process. We are using click analytics and the click engines to uncover the data, and to also, we are combining that with the process mining power. So you have the best of the BI world with the best of the process mining world. And this makes total sense, because you can look at the rework analysis, you can look at the same time at the different key performance indicators. You can easily make selections and look at just those variations which are important, and analyze that and see whether your KPIs are met or not. And look, for example, at the top vendors by the number of Ks, or top employees by the number of Ks, whether they are overloaded, what kind of process they are performing, and how they are meeting their targets. So there are many different ways to look at that. All right. So when we come back, we've seen that the job description of a lifeguard is actually to really set the boundaries, to look over the safety, to give a framework for the surfers that are sometimes very eager to jump into the water. We would like to include a term called process guard, someone who overlooks the same stuff in the processes. So as we think that lifeguards play a key role in creating the safe environment on the beach, some of the skills that are required from them, like swimming, of course, observation skills, knowledge about meteorology, hydrology, attention to detail, really overlooking that the whole time, not just do not take care about what's happening, emergency response, communication skills. We think that basically if we just change the swimming for analytical skills, we have the same job description for a process guard, for the process mining, giving the framework, for task mining, for RPA, being able to use the analytical skills to focus the attention of the RPA on the right RPA candidates, to use the observation skills and the correlation of the low-level granularity with the high-level granularity logs into one process map, just to give you the possibility to drill down, to look at the aggregated metrics in the process map. It gives you the power of overall dashboards, looking at the end-to-end process, and be able to really take the whole environment, evaluate potential dangers, and also then look at the end-to-end process and look at the dangers that might be happening outside the RPA world in that process. So I think that would be the summary, and I hope I made a point about the synergy of process mining, RPA, task mining, and if not me, then I hope that these eyes will persuade you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikhail. Thanks for the presentation and that short demo there. Okay, great. So we do have quite a few questions coming through already. If you do still have some questions, feel free to include them in the Q&A box. I'm going to start with a question that came in quite earlier on in the presentation. There's a question here asking, what are the shortcomings in RPA implementations for global businesses having presence across global regions?
So across global regions, well, this is quite a nice question and a very difficult one, I would say. I'm not an RPA expert, so probably someone from that world would answer it better. But from the viewpoint of really looking also from the process mining perspective and in combination with RPA, sometimes it is about the differences and how let's take an example of privacy and security. Let's take an example of really cultural differences. I've heard several case studies, even in the process mining world, which were talking about the same analysis of the same process in really different regions, let's say Europe and Asia, and what was considered a big optimization or maybe even a violation of some rules in Europe was considered a natural practice in Asia, and vice versa. So this is really, it might be very difficult to use the same, let's say, analysis and automation potential across that enterprise. But again, this is really like playing well with the process mining synergy with that world, because process mining is able to use functionalities like process compare or compliance checking to compare different regions, to see what the differences are in those metrics or even in that process map. And basically, you can then say, based on the data, whether the same approach is usable in a different region. So I hope I answered your question.
Okay, great. Another question here: Can you do process mining on in-house legacy systems, or are you only focused on SAP and mainstream ERPs?
We are not focused on SAP or mainstream ERPs. Basically, process mining is not focused on any system at all. Some vendors, of course, have a preference for a certain system, or they have, maybe a partnership with a certain systems. Process mining is about a sequence of steps. Even in industries where the word process is not established, like some of the very practical things like manufacturing, like healthcare, like really different, even in chemistry, in labs, where you have a sequence of steps and a system producing some kind of event logs or multiple systems, there is no problem using process mining for that. Of course, some systems offer a better logging. Some systems do not log at all. Maybe the old ones. We had some experience with the old mainframe computer and old systems on those computers. Then it depends on the system and of course the process, how difficult this is. But when there is connectivity, you can take the logs and you can use process mining for that. And then, of course, the second thing is that some vendors offer on-prem installations. Some vendors offer both. Some vendors offer just cloud. So then it depends also on your security policies, whether you want to send the data to cloud or not. That's another look.
All right. And so in looking at task mining, is there then any analysis of the steps taken by the user at a low level by another person, or is there a blind automation for RPA?
Looking at the task mining. So again, I said process mining is about the steps, the sequence of steps. So even the raw data, when you get the UI recording, you can upload that to Minit or I would say most of the process mining tools, and you can do the process mining analysis. I just showed a little bit of that. So looking at different like performance and so on. So you can do that, but it is the same as when you have unstructured process with a lot of systems. So it is important to have a tool that is giving you this organization of the data, that is able to simplify the data. So you certainly can do the analysis in a process mining tool. On the other hand, what I think process mining tools do not do is the analytics which is specific for certain mostly RPA vendors or vendors that are offering this URL recording or task mining capabilities. And that's the AI logic, which is kind of finding the right patterns based on occurrence, frequency, on special shortcuts, and very importantly, cleaning the noise out of that. Because when you take a simple thing like filling out the form on a web and just do an exercise, give to your family maybe to fill out the possibility to fill out the form on a web, and you will see how many variations of in the order in which you take the fields and fill it in you will get. So this is the noise that is present in the UI recordings, and some tools are better in getting rid of the noise, some are less better. And of course, I'm not talking about jumping from work-related stuff to private stuff and so on, where at the time is prolonging, you are coming back, then you start over, you jump from a certain part of the procedure to a different part of the procedure. But of course, it can offer. I would definitely not go for blind automation for RPA. It makes sense to look at the patterns, and even when the system says this is a pattern which is occurring very often and it's very fast, you still might have a pattern or a sequence of steps which are not compliant with your rules in the company. which are not compliant with regulations given by law, where people are, for example, skipping steps just to be faster, or taking it as voluntary or not necessary, but you want to have those steps, like maybe 4-eye control or something like that. So it is important also to analyze the result of the task mining as well. And I think process mining is good in that sense.
Okay, thank you, Mikhail. So we're coming to an end to the webcast now. Do you have any final words?
Yeah, thank you very much for your attention, for joining this webinar. We will, of course, send the materials to you. I think Jennifer will talk about that. And we definitely, some time ago, we introduced the hashtag Process Hero. So I hope that this session and other sessions that we do will make you a process hero in your company, and give you a look on the processes and make you a process guard that can benefit from joining and marriage of these hype technologies. So thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
Perfect. Thank you, Mikhail. So for anyone who asked a question and we weren't able to get through them, we will be responding to you directly. So you expect an email in your inbox as soon as possible. So upon closing this webcast, you will be directed to the next session. Thank you, Mikhail, again for joining, and thank you for Minit for sponsoring the event. Next up, it's Harry Luer at Nintex sharing a presentation on 3 digital transformation success stories during a pandemic. So see you all again in about 14 minutes. Speak soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.